In every big important moment, like the attempted assassination of President Trump, there's that tendency for people to say, here's where everything changed or could have changed. It's tempting to do that, particularly with the 10 seconds you're about to see that most people have not seen because the news cycle's moved on, because it wasn't all that important that, hey, former president was just about, and a retired volunteer police chief was. We'll look into this, and what does it really mean? What was the moment things really changed, really degraded for the Secret Service? This could be shocking if you've not seen it. The first time I saw it, I heard about it, I heard rumors of it, I heard that it had happened, but there's been so many things we've heard about with the attempted President Trump that I thought, could this really be the case? What happens is that police, local police on the scene, knew, of course, for several minutes, at least 10 minutes, there was a shooter on the rooftop. For about 2 minutes, they'd circled the building, guns drawn, moving civilians out of the way. No one moved President Trump back from the stage. No one took him off stage. No one blew a whistle. No one blew an alarm. No sniper took him out. All these things were allowed to occur. A police officer risked his life getting up on the building. It's a silent video. There's no sound. They didn't put the sound onto their camera, but let me kind of show what's going on. They're going between the two buildings. One officer is standing there. The officer's going to go up, says, hey, give me a lift, give me a lift. He puts his hands out, and this officer puts his right foot in. He's hoisted up onto the rooftop. As he gets up to the rooftop, he scales it, weapons ready, and he's on the roof. The shooter turns around and has him absolutely dead to rights. So the officer makes a reasonable decision to jump down and to run to his vehicle. Now, it would be tempting enough to say this is when it all changed. The officer runs to his car. He retrieves his service weapon. He's out of breath, as you would imagine. It would be tempting to say that's when it all could have changed. But that's not when it all could have changed. The way this adds up is the way we must divide it. I'll explain in a second what I mean by adding it up and dividing it, and what needs to change, and needs to change immediately in regard to so-called public service positions. Change can be slow, it can be quick. For instance, changing the smell of a room could take you forever, or a car, or an RV, or a dorm. If you've been stinky for a long time, such as in an old car that's been in a garage and just been stored, if it's been musty and mold's been growing in there for a long time, it could take forever to air that out, or not. It's up to you. You could be in a basement, and that basement becomes something you're working on and you're changing around, and it just stinks down there because it's a basement. As you're working on getting better ventilation and windows in there, you could wait, or not. You could have a habit like smoking, and man, I hope you'll quit that habit, or have a habit like my dad did of allowing 29 cats. At one point, 29 cats lived in his garage and under his garage. Only 3 of them were non-feral. That place stunk. Would it take forever to get into the crawl space and get all their funk out of there? And eventually, of course, we did that for my dad, cleaned the place up. But it doesn't need to take forever to clean up the bad smells. In fact, you can plug something into the wall, and in about 3 minutes, the bad smells are gone. The magic is this, that the Eden Pure Oxyleaf 2 produces O3, that's ozone. Those molecules attach themselves to the bad smells, and they destroy them. It even works with viruses. You will notice the change within 3 minutes. 3 of these devices will give you whole home coverage, and it will blow away bad smells in RVs or dorms or military barracks, wherever your family might be. I keep thinking about long-haul truckers, many of whom watch or listen to the podcast as they drive, that can't always smell great to live in your truck. Here's how you can save $200 on 3 of these, whole home coverage and complete coverage for your truck, obviously. Just go to EdenPureDeals.com, enter code TOD3. That's EdenPureDeals.com, enter code TOD3, and you can breathe a breath of fresh air again. It wasn't that 10-second video where that officer bravely risked his life to get up on a rooftop and wisely made the decision to jump down when the shooter would have been able to shoot him in the head from a very short distance. Well, that officer was not able to produce his weapon. He wasn't fully up on the roof. He made a good, smart, reasonable, life-sustaining decision to sprint to his car, to retrieve his rifle. What we've learned about the Secret Service is the same thing we've learned about the CDC, which is the same thing we've learned about the FDA, which is the same thing we've learned about the FBI. There is no accountability. In the business world, there's something called piercing the corporate shield. I learned about this when I was I wasn't welcomed in. I broke my way into the world of raising money out of Silicon Valley with the help of a friend, not a burglar. He's someone who actually knew how to speak VC, and he taught me. When I got my first company funded through venture capital, we had a meeting about the corporate shield and what that meant. Their lawyers presented scenario after scenario to me where they said things like this. This corporation can protect you. It can protect us. People have to sue the corporation. They don't get to directly sue us unless we pierce the corporate shield or allow them to do that. What would that be? Things like this. If you, Todd, embezzled money or allowed it to be embezzled, we, the shareholders, could sue you personally. If you, Todd, falsified something like advertising records or allowed them to be falsified on your watch, advertising clients could sue you personally. We're not going to backstop such a thing. If you do that, you're on your own legally. We will not pay for your defense. Piercing the corporate shield is hard to do, but it is done. We know about pharmaceutical executives who have, thank God, gone to prison and been issued huge fines for wildly unethical treatment of the human body, of, in fact, destroying that which God considers his masterpiece. That's mankind, made in his image, male and female, made in his image. Government must no longer have this effective, permanent shield. We need to reform. And reform should work like this. When there is clear lying, clear fraud, or clear, blatant, rampant incompetence, we need to have a formula for piercing the government shield. We need to be able to go directly at the individuals and to sue them. I'm not saying on a wild, go nuts, Wild West basis. I'm saying on a prescribed basis. These activities mean you will pay for your own legal defense. These activities mean the government shield does not apply. How much could you have in that? For me, I would start with basic, provable, demonstrable lies. The Secret Service lies consistently, particularly about what happened in that shooting. So does the FBI. I'd start there. And then on levels of basic incompetence, like this. If you have a published set of guidelines, say, for instance, on the Secret Service agents who are to guard a president, and they are published, you would have things like the body people around the president need to be as big as, if not bigger than, the president or the principal you're guarding. Why? Because their bodies go in between a potential shooter and the principal. If they're smaller than the principal, then the shooter can get around them. If you make a decision to bypass a basic standard of protection, you are liable. If you make a decision to allow 2 of the 3 Secret Service shooters who were on the neighboring rooftop to leave the building, one was sick, one had to pee, the third had to go retrieve the guy who went to pee because he forgot his card key. That left an easy access time for the shooter to do what he did. That's an unbelievable set of affairs. I don't believe it happened that way. Sounds like Jeff Epstein and the guards falling asleep and the cameras getting turned off, the 911 tapes accidentally being erased, darn the stinking luck. But if it is incompetence, that level of incompetence should allow you to pierce the corporate shield. If I, as a CEO of a startup, had been so incompetent with shareholder money that I'd said to my CFO, hey, don't bother balancing the books. Don't bother doing audits. It's just investor money. We're going to get more. That level of incompetence should have been punishable by me going to jail. Praise God, I was smart enough or humble enough or afraid enough to turn to my CFO on a weekly basis and go, how are we doing with shareholder money? The same thing is not true in Washington, D.C. The reform is this. They're people. They're fallible. We're to pray for them. We're not to hate them. We're to love them, but we're also to have accountability. God's very clear about the stewarding of finances. Do it wisely in a way that produces fruit. Well, our finances, against our will sometimes, are used by government. It would be a godly thing to demand accountability.